Yeah, everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Marco D'Angelo. I'm a director in the Huawei Standard and Industry Department. So I deal mainly with open source. To be honest, I'm taking part of the Huawei effort to productize part of the open source research that they have outside of the other services that are products. So this morning we are not talking about product, we're talking about projects, and to be honest, I'm not even talking about Huawei. I'm like kind of wearing the hat of Eclipse Foundation. That is the open source foundation that we interoperate a lot here in Europe to drive projects like Oniro or Expanse that I will talk later. So, as I was mentioning, there's a number of things that need to be addressed. Let's see if you can say, okay. In a very short time. We start very high because I have to explain why we are having this discussion, and we will go a little bit deeper in the architectural side of the stuff that we are going to present. And last part, like Christopher was mentioning, we are creating right now, we are in the process of creating a joint working group, Eclipse Foundation, Gaia-X, a number of providers in Europe. Feel free to join us if you're a developer, if you're a solution provider, if you want to be part of this effort that is a technical one. So we're dealing with, as I said, projects and code, not specifically with other aspects that are dealt with Gaia-X. So why we're going to have this discussion about cloud interoperability. If you were here yesterday, you heard something in the main session about, hey, you know what, there's a lot of investment, a lot of things that are happening in the market with hyperscaler. They are pouring a lot of money and a lot of influences in the market. The market that, by the way, it's big. The cloud market is big. The cloud service is even bigger, and it's growing. Why it's growing? Still growing because of the shift from the on-premise to the cloud. AI, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of discussion is still to be seen in terms of huge consumption for the workload and application and inferences. A lot of stuff right now is done, perfectly well in training and optimization of model. But basically, in Europe, we think that by 2030, there will be 331 billion euro market. That it's an impressive market, represent a good opportunity for everyone that is in the field, but there's a catch. The catch is that if you take a look, and there's an Eclipse study that I will reference in the next slide, that shows that the market for cloud in Europe is not owned by cloud providers from Europe, even worse. This is a study of last year, so it aggregate the data from 2022. It's, believe me, I spent 20 of my year in a cloud hyperscaler, an American one. Believe me, it's accelerating. Basically, in 2022, 88% of cloud migration projects, the one that on-premise cloud, whatever, landed on only 3 hyperscalers. AWS, GCP, and obviously Azure. So this is basically the situation we have, and we, as I said, already had a number of times the discussion on why we need interoperability. Those are just our numbers that, by the way, are backed by this study. That was a 2023 study from Eclipse Foundation. The QR code that I'm gonna show us lands you directly on the PDF that you will be able to use. So that study, that everyone, the consensus is there. Basically, interoperability and cloud interoperability, it's good for everyone. It's good for market because cloud interoperability gives the possibility to the customer to have a choice, so they can pick the best service, and Gaia-X framework with Gaia-X is there for picking the most appropriate service, maybe the most cheap. But it's not an issue for service provider, because if you grow the market, and we saw that the market is growing, it gives the possibility also to cloud solution provider to get a reward for their effort, to be proactive in providing services that application and at the end of the day, enterprise customers can consume. And so there's the numbers are there. There is the need, there's the possibility, there's the space for a growing European market. So growing European ecosystem of cloud provider and services, it's there. Now, this is the landscape. That's the even the issue that we have. Now, this is not the technical side. This is still a very, very high level side. If we think about, okay, how I, as a cloud solution provider in Europe, I'm providing those services to tackle this opportunity. You know pretty well, we provide IaaS services, we provide PaaS service, but we want interoperability. Why? We said so because if there is one hyperscaler that is providing the same service that I'm providing now, maybe those people are even more efficient. They can do way more stuff than me. They can provide way more architecture, way more VMs, way more different kind of services that me as a cloud solution provider in Europe maybe have some difficulty. It means that it's not as simple as that. We have to go a layer down, a little bit layer down. If you think about how a cloud solution provider works, yes, we have usual stuff, the VMs, the storage, we have maybe the compute of any other kind, very nice Kubernetes services, but it doesn't stop there. If I'm a customer and I have to run an application on a cloud, I'm not using just or looking for simply a VM or a storage. I want services. I want to manage databases. I want something that can be considered a building block for my application. And modern applications are composed of a very large number of building blocks that competitors in the cloud space provide as managed services. You want Kubernetes, you get, I know, Rancher, OpenShift, whatever. You want databases, you get managed MongoDB, managed Enterprise DB. So you name it, that's the stuff. The issue is that when those service providers, those hyperscaler providers, those kind of services, in theory, everything can be migrated from one side to another. The reality is that under the hood, there's a huge backend service that is used to maintain those services. So it is not the same for me to say, hey, I'm using a managed something on hyperscaler A, but I can convince my customer to move to my infrastructure or to hyperscaler B, because there are things to be considered, differences in billing, differences in identity and access, observability, whatever. It could be technically possible to create an API layer that translates from one side to another. It can be possible, yes, but some, let me say, operators will be more open than others in providing the stuff. There will be people willing to open their backend services API for the billing and metrics, and there are other operators that will say, you know what, not good for business to be so much open. Then, like Christoph was saying, we need something that is creating the discussion about, okay, it is not good for business, but it's good for the European market. And then that act that we, the majority of the time, we consider related to the B2B data access, B2C data access. If you look far, far, far on the green side, that's also the switchability requirement for provider of cloud services. That part, those articles, are the basis for the discussion on, hey, you want to operate in a market that is a European market, you should be taking care also and abide to those regulations. That is the complex part. That is the policy part. It is literally, to be honest, not my word. My word, it's another one. My word is the word that if you think about what can be done, my point, through open source. There's a lot of stuff that technically can be done through open source. And here, Christoph, I took the big X because it's the thing that I believe can give us an edge, not an edge cloud, can be an advantage in having this discussion. So I don't want, Christoph, you want to me to try to explain, you to explain the big X.
No, actually not. Of course you can do that, but what I want to highlight once again is the focal area of what Gaia-X now provides. Because you remember, or many of you will remember, when we initially started, that's a map of everything. I mean, from infrastructure, like managed Kubernetes, up to, how is it called, value creation services on top of generative AI on a very large scale. So that's pretty much everything. I think the only thing which is missing thing is the cloud to edge continuum, which is not explicitly here. So this is the whole idea. And after the kind of a finding focus period, we now know, and you can witness that in the maturity of the software, that we now focus on the trust framework. So establishing trust between the participants, the cloud service providers, the cloud service users. And there is one marked difference to the data space approaches. Data spaces come and still center, even simple, I have the impression, they center on data products, data transactions. So this is, of course, part of the overall ecosystems, but this is the engine data. What really matters, and I think we fully agree on that, is the services which you then use on top of the data. So that data is not an end in itself, it's a means to provide solutions. And for trusted data transfer and trusted service access and execution, you would go with that Gaia-X trust framework. So that's kind of the core. This is why we are interested to have one trust framework, also standardized, irrespective of whether that's a system in the edge, machine identities, whether that's a CSP with Kubernetes and, I don't know, SSH access, or it's a data transaction, or any business solution, an IoT platform, or something like that. Trust framework, automation of trust. That's the sweet spot of Gaia-X and of our software, whereas the portability parts we will not engage directly. The Gaia-X lab will not develop open source for cloud services switching or portability, at least not in the very near or midterm future.
Yeah.
We leave that to
when
colleagues.
it comes to developing open source, there are other entities that are to be considered. And with Christoph, we said that, you know what, there's a kind of an alignment between what Gaia-X is doing from the data ecosystem and infrastructure ecosystem with another entity, that is the Eclipse Foundation. We'll go a little bit better on what Eclipse Foundation is now, where it's based, what it is, but basically Gaia-X has been working on the data space area with Eclipse. As a matter of fact, they created the Eclipse data space part, and on the infrastructure side, there's another project that will be the focus of our little bit of drill down today, that is the Expanse. Expanse, it's an open source project. So we start talking a little bit, shining away from the higher level to a little bit better of the more technical ones. So what is Expanse? Expanse basically, and there's the QR code that goes to the Eclipse.dev Expanse project. It's basically an open source project. It's part of the Open Service Cloud Initiative, the one that related to the study that I showed before. So it's rooted in why we're doing this. There's a business and economic justification. How we are addressing this, we are having the code doing the talk. So we are working with something that can be run, tested, even starred on the, let me say, on the repo if you want. We started this project a couple of years ago. To create code, define what were the specifics. So now we are running this as one of the possible projects of the working group that Christoph was mentioning. But basically, what we are talking about another orchestrator, another stuff that creates virtual machine. Yes and no. We're talking about a kind of a provisioning engine that can be used in a different flavor of stuff, and it deals mainly with managed services. So remember what I said initially, when I have to provision, when I have to run my application, when my customer, my enterprise customer wants to run his application on my infrastructure, on my cloud, it doesn't deal mainly with just giving me storage and a couple of IP networks and networks. He wants to have services that can be instantiated and used to run application. So here we deal with a little bit higher level of stuff that can be, as I said, managed services. As I said, it is not just simply an orchestrator, it's an engine. It means that has got the possibility to be mainly used via REST API. We have coded a very minimum UI to just give the possibility to understand what it does. It's as I said, an orchestrator and deployer services that gives the possibility to create a number of use cases that are of interest for, I believe, this audience. So let's as I said, drill down a little bit, and then I will be available on the side for the fire chats. So, first use cases. Let me say that I am ISV. An ISV that wants to have an agreement with a cloud solution provider. Say, hey, you know what? I've got this nice service that can be a managed databases, a managed infrastructure, even an application. And I want to be able to have this stuff not just basically in a marketplace of yours. Just, hey, here's the definition, click here, someone from sales will contact you, and someone from operation will create the deployment. Let's say that we want to create something that can be described as a service, as an application through what is called an expanse service definition language that can be managed and passed to a cloud management system that is always also done by and integrated by Expanse to create what? To create what can be considered a kind of a first-party service in my portal. So I can create a managed instance of some, I don't know, OpenAI, OPIA, not OpenAI infrastructure, something that deals with MongoDB, something that creates a Spark cluster, whatever. That can be one of the usage scenario of Expanse. Other usage scenario, it's basically, I'm a service provider. I deploy Expanse inside my network, my cloud, and I can use Expanse to do what? To basically provision stuff inside my hypervisor. If I use, I don't know, OpenStack, if I use Xen, if I use whatever stuff for which we have already connector, or for which we will code the connectors. There will be end user using the possibility to create their own application. There will be the software vendors that will need to provide, or someone to provide the template of the managed services to be created and integrated with, I was mentioning before, access network, observability, compute, and stuff. Very, very, as I said, when I don't know what I'm saying, I go fast, pretending to understand the topics. The third scenario, it's the concept of a managed service app store. So I'm a service provider, I can create stuff in a cloud of someone else. I'm a cloud provider, I can have my customers creating their own services inside my cloud and consume my billability on services. I'm an enterprise customer, and I don't want to pick one cloud provider or another. I want to have connectors with a number of different cloud providers, hyperscaler, local ones, specific vertical ones, okay? I can deploy Expanse internally and say, hey, you know what? I've taken the template from the software vendors for the stuff that I have to provide. I have created and inputted the credentials for the various service provider, and I give the possibility to my end users, that can be internal users, to create their own internal applications in the cloud provider of their choice or the cloud provider of my choice company, because I believe that if you need latency, better to be local. If you need cheap, better to be hyperscaler, something like that. So this is, as I said, one Eclipse Foundation project. It is governed by Eclipse Foundation. Here's just a bunch of logos of stuff that pass the message that it is an open source project built on top of open source project and dealing with open source standards. So it is, at the end of the day, a lot of infrastructure as a code. We work obviously with Terraform. We work with containers, but we like to match very much OpenTofu for a number of reasons. And we know that when there's configuration to be done, Ansible is the way to go. Or not, but it's up to be discussed. Maven, because a lot of development is done in Java. Repo that we decided to use, it's GitHub. And there's a number of enabling tech that are basically Citadel for the authentication, Open Policy Agent for the policy management, Open Telemetry to be able to go and see what is happening. Now, one point specifically. Governed by Eclipse Foundation. I had a number of interactions with people around the summit. I believe it's better to re-explain what is Eclipse Foundation and why we work with them. Eclipse Foundation, it's the only open source foundation that is based in Europe. So it's easy to work for a number of European reality with them just because they're based out of Brussels. There are some specificity that regard, from my point of view, Eclipse, and it's that Eclipse, it's not just only open source project. There are open source projects and market leaders that works on those projects. Why market leaders like, I mean, Huawei, where I come from, Microsoft, where I was before, Red Hat, but a lot of enterprise European customers like Bosch or SAP. Why? Another specificity of the Eclipse that by my point of view, it's interesting. Eclipse foster collaboration by industry. I was having a discussion with nice guys outside about, hey, you know what, if maybe you're using MQTT brokers like Mosquito, or you're dealing with IoT in Europe, maybe you're not aware, but 60, 70, more than 70%, more than 70 open source projects regarding to IoT are hosted by Eclipse Foundation. So in embedded IoT, they have a lot of things to say, the same in automotive mobility, and by the way, yes, they are the foundation for the Eclipse IDE and a lot of more other stuff, Java, for example. So we are working with Eclipse and we are working with Gaia-X to do what? To try to speed up and accelerate the Expanse project, but mainly the solution to the product and the project and the problem, that I've introduced. Like Christoph was mentioning, we are creating within Eclipse a working group that will take care and will group a number of technology, so already working stuff that can be used, tried, tested from Gaia-X, from different other vendors, to be able to kind of productize the vision of the open service cloud, accelerate the deployment in the open of Expanse, and put everything together to be able to give an actionable answer on, okay, what we do on our cloud, on our infrastructure, inside our data centers, if we're talking about the cloud solution provider in Europe. The working group, it's basically created for, and then we are still discussing how will be the name of the working group. So it's let me call Cloud Working Group, where we're debating on, and we're looking for suggestion either. It will be the main goal to provide the possibility on foster the development of open source technology, protocols, and specification that are aligned with what we've said before, aligned with multi-cloud interoperability needs, and in line with the Data Act switching requirement that we mentioned. That is from our side. So this is Eclipse. It's a working group that we take care about the deep technical standardization work.
Yeah, maybe there's an explanation how they work and the different parties, the different associations. On one hand, of course, Gaia-X, on the other hand, the Eclipse Foundation, how we would work together. And would that mean that every Gaia-X member, every CSP would now have to also become a member of Eclipse in order to be able to join the working group, or how is that working? And we had actually a discussion with Mike Milankovic, I think, if I pronounce him correctly, I hope at least, the CEO of the Eclipse Foundation, how to split the responsibilities between the Eclipse working group, which we need for international standardization later on, and Gaia-X. It turned out that the Eclipse is very much developer, very much technical specification guys oriented. And of course ladies. So if you are familiar with writing standards, if you are a coder, then that would be the reason to go into the Eclipse working group as well, in addition to Gaia-X. Because this is only concerned, I'm a little bit exaggerating, but stressing the point, in writing the standard, writing the code, because you need three things to become an ISO standard through Eclipse. You need a specification, someone needs to write that. You need a TCK, a technical compatibility kit, which is software testing the APIs, and you need at least one implementation which passes the TCK. If you have those three, you can get fast-track access to an ISO standard. So this is for those people who want to really contribute to that, because they are so large that they are massively impacted, or they are so swift and nimble that they want to be the first to adopt those standards. If you're a smaller cloud provider, then this is that is also a place to be. If you want to talk and be informed about the business requirements of why do you need that, which directions would the standard go, is that one in I don't know, what are the means to provide additional future architectural variation points, for instance, then we are happy to host these discussions with our CSPs in Gaia-X. And of course, when the board of directors decide so, then we will funnel that into the working group so that you do not automatically have also to become a member of the Eclipse working group in order to get your view, your voice heard in the standardization. Because the actual standardization only can take place here. If we have another stream of standardization, it would be a completely other standard, and we want to avoid having 2-3 things running in parallel. So this is the safeguard to come into the ISO fast track adoption process. So business discussion, functional discussions, also feedback. What's happening here? Do we need to adjust something? That's within Gaia-X. If you want to influence really a technical specification because it's so important, or you want to form that specification, then I'm afraid you have to become a member in the Eclipse working group as well.
Yeah, and to be honest, also if you want to add to our technical depth and prioritize the roadmap that we are envisioning, I will suggest to engage with that. As a developer with the project, as a company with the working group. Because as you can imagine, there are a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts, a lot of competing interests or priorities between different vendors and cloud solution providers and stuff. We have customers say, we want this service, we want this provider. It means that working with us, as I said, contributing for the Expanse project, not even only the Expanse one, we'll discuss a bit later, or entering the working group, it will give us the possibility not to just, as Christoph was saying, discussing, but it will just give us the possibility to do releases that address technical requirement and can be deployed and used in one of the 3 scenarios or even more about that. I'm from Huawei, we're doing the same from Huawei. So we're going to use Expanse as a project in our tooling. So we're doing our stuff, but we want to have others getting their voice heard and getting their stuff in there. As I mentioned, the focus is not just Expanse. I'm coming from Expanse, so I can talk technically about that. The focus about the effort that we have to put together if we want to address the problem that we mentioned, and this effort will provide a number of high-level benefits that translates in the fact that we need to create components and we have to create accessible services and open technology. That stuff happens in the working group, in the Eclipse working group. Not only happens this, there are, as I said, other projects that are already committed. I'm not talking about companies, but I'm talking about literally codes. There is a Biscuit coming from one of the founding members. Gaia-X obviously is providing conformity assessment profile, and verifiable credentials. We're even talking with hyperscalers slash hypervisors provider. Everyone is in love with OpenStack those days and ages because this company VMware created and Broadcom created a little bit of a niche in the market, needing enterprise customer to switch. If we don't want everyone to switch to hyperscalers. They got a very nice commercial agreement with VMware. Maybe we can talk with other stuff. It's not only, as I mentioned, OpenStack. There's XN with XPC. There's a large number of other technology. So the working group is forming. Christoph captured perfectly the let me say the Ito. You're a big company. You want to let me say make sure that the standard, everything will go in the direction that you've already invested a lot. You are a local provider. You want to be the first being on board to say, hey, I'm here, I'm doing stuff. I can provide it to my customer, a differentiation compared to the other stuff. So that was the 30 minutes. We're more or less on time.
Any questions? Any volunteers who want to participate already right now? We have the legal papers over there. Yeah, participation fees over lunch. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Like the multi-cloud interoperability was talked about a lot in the last few years already, and it seems like a giant thing to do to me. But the Data Act is not too far away. Do you have like a, I mean, the working group is just forming, of course, but do you have like a timeline you would like to stick to, or like at least a bit of a goal, or like a rough estimate?
In terms of the roadmap of the availability of the services, or the forming of the working group?
The roadmap for the services.
Okay, so we have a roadmap that is internal right now, because it depends on, I mean, if we were only working, as I said, as Huawei, we are just one actor of the stuff, and if we were to think about what we need out of this effort, we will say that in a couple of years, so not even, let's say 2026, we want the stuff, we envision this stuff to be in that place. In the meantime, as I said, and we know that it's a long journey, that's why we started coding 2 years ago, October 2022. So we have already not only an MVP. It's not, as I said, it's not a product, because it's a project. You take the code, please fork, by any means, fork the repo and start doing everything that is that's needed. So we will start doing the implementation after the working group is formed, because we don't want people just to get code that is not aligned, as we were mentioning, with a vision. So having Gaia-X on board gives this kind of alignment. If I have to think about where we're gonna have this landing on the stuff, the roadmap now says 2 years from now. And we know that because there's, as I said, a number of moving targets, but we had 2 years of experience on what does it mean to work on complexities like that.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, I am from the customer side, so it's nice that the providers have a good strategy to set up a standard, but what would be the best way from a customer to influence that standard, so that at the end you find someone that is willing to buy what you will produce?
Okay. As I said, I'm coming from the open source side. So my point is, there are two things that has to be committed, if I would say from a customer point of view. The commitment is to engage. That seems obvious, but it is not. It means that if there's a working group and there's a code, someone has to take a look at it and provide feedbacks, and doing it on a, let's say, kind of regular basis. So the best course of action would be joining the working group, starting providing, as I mentioned before, because that lands directly in my team, providing feedback on what is needed technically to be used, in a way that you start reaping the efforts a little bit before. So you deal with something that you can already use right now in your tool chain, at least. And while you're shaping what we're doing on the product side, being in the working group, you know that you're literally sitting in where the code aligns with the specification. So we are not going ahead with the code just forgetting the specification. We are creating the working group to align code and specification.
Thank you for your answer, but my question was more on the governance. So do you envision some way that end users can participate in the governance?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, let me go a number of slides before. The point was, as you can see somewhere, we want, at the end, this is kind of a market play. We want those people be happy, because those people are the one running the show. End user, customers, will decide to, you will make or break this approach, because they will decide or not to leverage the services provided through the Expanse project. And you will see that basically more or less everywhere there's something that has to be created to be used. by users, and by users. So that's the point. It is not, from our point of view, a play to create. I mentioned before, anytime a product, but we want to have something that can be installed and used. And everyone is doing their things right if the business is working and adopting this technology. And business for me means enterprise customers. I mean, even small business, but enterprise customer.
Thank you, first of all. There is another Eclipse project called Expand. So I don't know if you heard about it. And it has nothing to do with your project.
No.
But could fit very well because of the code generation process. Two questions: is there some confusion with this project that you already had?
Yeah, I'm looking at my Eclipse colleague and said, okay, yeah.
And the second question: doesn't it fit quite well? Also, Expand to use for code generation for your stuff somehow.
Yeah, and believe me, it's easy when I mentioned the fact that we are sitting inside the Eclipse Foundation because we want to leverage the possibility of the ecosystem. There are a number, besides Expand, besides the fact that connecting to the other guys, a number of people interested in using those kind of technology maybe comes from the IoT world. And Eclipse is the house of the IoT from my point of view. So we are in Eclipse because we want to do those synergies. So I didn't mention all the projects that are right now committed for the working group because if there's a pure open source project, we need the core committer to be there. If it's a technology sponsored by a company, we have the company to participate. But we are aware. I mean, it could be very strange if we decided to pick Eclipse and we were not aware about the fact that we have a very adjacent project.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe can we give to Javier that is from Eclipse and can clarify even better?
Sorry to get over you. So, to answer the question as well. Well, first, a disclaimer. I work with the Eclipse Foundation, but I am not an expert on the topic, let's say. My role is more on the data spaces, but I can brief you on the way working groups are operating. So that question was also linking to how we operate in working groups. So what we are trying to create here is what we call an industry collaboration, as we were saying. And there are certain attributions of this kind of working groups in this case. The first one is linked to what we were discussing, standardization. So the working group can decide, okay, there is a need for a standard here, so let's work together on an open standardization, and we can fast track it through ISO and also Sense and Elect. We are developing as well this liaison. So we can convert those ideas into concrete technical standards, and hopefully we will use them. But there is another thing, which is what we call strategy or providing a common vision for projects. So Expanse would be one of the projects that would be, as we call, under the purview of the working group, meaning that they will commit to the strategy that we are setting and they will commit on incorporating the standards that we are doing. But it is not limited to Expanse, so it is not a one-to-one relationship. So it is not that Expanse is creating the working group and it's standardizing. It's that everybody on the Eclipse Foundation as a project can decide, because at the end of the day, open source projects are self-sovereign. They can decide whether they would like to go one direction or the other, but they will decide, okay, is this working group aligned with what I am doing? In that case, I can get in touch with the people on the working group and I can be under the purview. So I commit on the strategy that they are deploying, I contribute and provide feedback to the strategy, and I commit on incorporating those technical standards. So the answer to your question, we would very much like Expand or any other Eclipse project to go into the working group, and we will collaborate for sure with those projects happily.
That was the lady.
My name is Xindong from Moonlight IT Solutions, and I have a question. There is another Eclipse Foundation open source project named TrackTools-X. TrackTools-X is focused on the use case development. It's for the Gaia-X, for the Catena-X, and not only for the Catena-X, but also for the manual track Turing-X. It's as the common software stack. Yeah, and there is some relation or connection between the two projects, Expanse and Attractus X, because I see there is some
There will be
complementary.
there will be there will be commonality with a number of other projects. Right now, as I said before, creating the working group, we still haven't engaged with the other projects because what Javier was saying. You will see a lot of overlap for and that's come from the joke that I was having, another orchestrator, another provisioning engine between open source project initiatives from Gaia-X and even commercial product. The peculiarity of the Expanse and the working group that we are creating is that we deal with managed services. So that's the idea, the creation of higher architectures and not only provisioning. Let me go back to here it is. Okay, provisioning something that is lower level. Our idea is that we are, by definition, going to integrate with a lot of those projects. We will have to integrate with cloud management systems from the single providers. So you already decided to have another piece of code, another product that does management. We will need to, and there will be some needs of integration with another stuff. It will be through the working group and through the management and the prioritization of the activity, because we cannot just be basically doing everything all at once. It will be not possible. We are gonna work, coming back to the comment from the previous customer, we are gonna prioritize in some cases what the market will ask us to do. And we are going to prioritize, and when I say market, that means the companies participating to the working group.
Okay, because I see there are a very good complementary between the both projects. If the both projects could combine with each other, then for the industry, it's very benefit, have the benefit. Yes, because we have the basic infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, and we have also the use case focused project, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely agree. That's the spirit. So we don't deal with, in this case, too much, I would say, let me say, politics. We deal with specification and implementation. But the finite number of developers and interested party, it gives us the need to prioritize, to put in on our roadmap that gives us the possibility to land on 2026 with a standard. Please give us all the feedback that you can, and engage with me or with Javier about where to find information on the working group and how to engage with us.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was really nice. Just to clarify from my understanding, so Expanse is open source, but the managed service that could be deployed with it, do they have to be open source, or could they not be?
We will work. We are engaging directly with open source projects, but it's an open specification. So and to be honest, a number of open source projects, they've got their own commercial version. So there's no requirement to work with only open source. It is clear and it is reasonable that commercial entity will invest the effort to do their stuff, their integration, because it's not open, so no one will help, when they see traction and the presence in there. But we're more than, the idea is to create an open platform for everyone to collaborate.
Yeah, so your strategy is like you create traction with open source project first and then attract the businesses to also, so that's it. Okay, thanks.
We're doing that also, working with some open source projects, providing them directly access to some markets. So to be able to be sure that when we start, there's interest, also commercial interest from some people to work with Expanse stuff. We're using it inside Huawei Cloud. That's part of the game that guarantee a long-term sustainability of the project. That makes a lot of sense if you think about the market in China.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem.
For the sake of your lunchtime, I think Marco will be around a little bit longer. Maybe one or two questions, final.
Marco, excellent. Because my question, I have a friend that has a small company and would be very happy to be able to enter the Chinese market. So do you think that third-party way of joining expands would be a good way to enter the Chinese market with no barriers, let's say, or with reasonable barriers?
That's why we're assistants. No, jokes aside. Let me say, let's have a side discussion. I can introduce to my colleagues that works in Huawei for the Chinese market. But if you have a technical project that needs to be provisioned inside a cloud provider in China, it can help a lot to know the specifics of expanse. But yeah, let's talk. This is business, so it's I can present you to other people.
Any final pressing question? And I remind the asking person that this is the only gap between us and the lunch. And of course, we are all available during lunch, so we can pick up and you can have a private one-to-one discussion on.
Yeah, I'm sticking around, and by any means, connect me on LinkedIn, and I usually answer literally in real time.
Then thanks a lot for your patience. Thanks a lot for your questions. Looking forward to the final stages of the summit, and in case of any further follow-up you need, you know Marco now, you know myself. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
It's a